Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in with our next episode of Understanding the 12 Steps. In this specific episode, we are taking a look at step 4. We've already taken a look at steps 1, 2, and 3. So I'd like to encourage you, if you have not already watched those episodes for those steps, go back and take a listen. I guarantee you, you're not going to be able to dive into step 4 until you have adequately and successfully worked steps 1, 2, and 3. Each step builds upon the next. And so there is no skipping around or moving around or working some and not others. When you're progressing along, by the time you get to step 4, steps 1, 2, and 3 will be critical in the successfulness of you working step 4. But in step 4, this is what it says. We made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Now there's several things going on within that. First, you're doing a searching. And you're doing a fearless, then you're doing a moral inventory. And of who? Of yourself. This is not where you're looking at everybody else. This is where you're looking deep within inside of yourself. And it's a searching and it's a fearless. So when we look to scripture, one of my ultimate favorite scriptures, and I have many, but one of them I like to go to, is Psalm 139, verses 23 through 24. This is what it says. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you, and lead me along the path everlasting. So you're approaching the throne of God and you're asking him to reveal things within inside of you. Now, I know for me, oftentimes I struggle with seeing things that I can't see. You can't see what you can't see. You can't know what you don't know. You can't hear what it is you don't hear. And you're going to need God's help in order to be able to see it, in order to be able to hear it, and in order to be able to know it. And when you approach step 4, you can't approach it without having the help of God. And so when you come to him, you're saying, I'm ready to do that searching and fearless moral inventory. Ask him to search you first. See, he's going to know better than anyone how much you can handle. He's going to know just all those different layers. He already knows them. But can you imagine if you went from 0 to 60 overnight? That'd probably be too overwhelming for you. See, step 4 is not a one and done. It's a continuous process, but you got to step out and begin working it, right? And so looking at Psalm 139, verses 23 through 24, you're approaching God. You've already come to believe, and now you've already made a decision to turn your will and your life over to the care of him, because that is involved in the second and the third step. And now you're at step 4, and this is a pivotal point. A lot of people actually, they run away from step 4 at all costs. It's one of the most scariest steps ever, but it's the most rewarding. It's where it is that self-discovery, where it is a self-reflection, where you are coming to an absolute understanding of who you are on the inside. Not who you think you are on the outside, but on the inside, right? When you look at Lamentations, chapter 3, verse 40, it says, let us, and that could even say, let you. But let you examine your ways and test them, and then do what? Then return to the Lord. So oftentimes, we try to go every other direction, and we forget that we have a God who loves us, who wants to walk along this path with us. And we move about, and you wonder why the heaviness is so there, because you're seeking to do it on your own, by yourself, without the help of God. That is why steps 2 and 3 are critical. Step 1, you're coming to the end of yourself. Right? You're at the end of your ropes. Step 2 is saying, I need God. Step 3 is making that decision now to turn your will and your life over to the care of him, and now you're ready for step 4. When you get to the fearless point, step 4 is scary. It is scary because nobody likes to look at. I'm not sure I don't like to look at, and I'm sure you don't like to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. It is everything within inside of you that now you're approaching, and that's a scary thing. But in Isaiah 41:10, and again, this is another one of those scriptures that is a go-to for me. It helps to remind me that I'm not alone. Don't have to do it alone, and I can't succeed on my own. You don't have to go alone. You don't have to do it alone, and ultimately, you can't succeed on your own. But it doesn't mean that you can't achieve success as long as you know who the source of your success is and who's going to be there along with you. So in Isaiah 41:10, it says this, it says, so do not fear. So you're searching and you have to be fearless. You're doing a searching and fearless moral inventory. It says, do not fear. Why? For I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you, and I will uphold you with my righteous hand. You know what that verse is saying? I'm going to be with you. I'm going to travel with you. I'm going to give you victory in all of this. I'm going to strengthen you, and I'm going to help you with my righteous and uphold you with my righteous hand. See, God is the one who's going to give you the victory. He's going to give you everything that it is that you need through the course of working that fourth step, right? So when you're doing it, when you're searching and you're doing it fearlessly, you cannot do it without the help of God. But through the help of God, with the help of God, and because of the help of God, you're going to be able to successfully work step 4. And I guarantee you that when you look back, you will say what a blessing it was to do. Will there be pain involved? Sure, yes. Will there be discomfort? Absolutely. There's a lot of things that you're going to have to wrestle with as you write out step 4 and as you take a deep look within inside of yourself. But as you do that, you're going to do it alongside of a God who loves you deeply, right? Then we move on to the next part. What kind of inventory are you doing? You're doing a moral inventory. The idea of moral is, see, morals are concerned with the principles of right and wrong behavior and the goodness or badness of human character. It has to do with behavior and character and the right and the wrong and the good and the bad. When you do this moral inventory, it's not about just looking at all the bad within inside of you, although there's probably a lot of junk going on because, you know, we live in a sinful world and there's probably decisions you've made that have been less than stellar. I know I've made them. We're all in the same boat. We're in this together. But when you're doing this, you also have to look at the good because not everything about you is bad. There are so many good things. In fact, there is so many good things about you that God can't seem to take his eyes off of you. God gazes upon you. And his love wants to be poured out upon you. And it was poured out upon you through the cross. And he wants to continue pouring it out. So when you're doing the moral inventory, you're looking at the good. And you're looking at the bad. And you're looking at the ugly. But you're looking at it all. You're getting a full 360-degree look at the inside of you. And you're doing this for yourself, in yourself, so you can better yourself. And in 1 Peter 1:16, this is what it says. Why do we do this kind of an inventory? When we're following God, walking along with God, have a relationship with God through his son Jesus, this is what Peter writes in here. It says, since it is written, you shall be holy, for I am holy. See, your goal is to be holy because God is holy. Now, none of us are going to be able to reach absolute 100% perfection because we're not perfect. The only one who was perfect was Jesus. But we are to seek to be holy. We are to seek that. Why? Because he is. The goal is to become more like him, more like Jesus. We want the character traits of Jesus to take root within inside of us, inside of you. And when it does, it will manifest itself in such a way where you become transformed. Your life will be transformed, but even beyond that, you will be transformed. It's not about just having a transformed life. It's having a transformed you. And when you have a transformed you, your life can't help but be transformed. So you're not going after the changing of the life. You're going after the changing of yourself. In Galatians 5:16, it says this, but I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. Up until this point, life is about self-serving. It's all about the isms. It's all about the I, self, me. It's all about what you want, where you want to go, how you want to get there. It's so self-centered, and it's all about your will and not God's will. But when you seek to live by the Spirit, you're seeking to satisfy him. And that's what it means to you seek to be holy because he is holy, right? And like I said, pointing back to the third step, you made the decision to turn the care of your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand him. And that is all about God through his son, Jesus Christ, right? All about turning your will, your life over to his care. And then you seek to please him. But as you seek to please him and you're working the fourth step, he's saying, I'm going to get you through this. I'm going to walk alongside you. You're going to have success. I'm going to strengthen you. I'm going to help you. And he says, I am going to uphold you. And you know what that tells you? He's going to see you through completion of it. It's not just about the starting. It's about the finishing. Starting is important. But you want to know what's more important than starting? Finishing. If you start well and you never finish, then that avails you nothing. But if you start well and you finish strong, so you want to start well and finish strong. The way you finish strong is you allow him to strengthen you, him to help you, and him to uphold you. right? Now, in your life, when you approach step 4, you also have to know when you're looking at your will versus his will versus doing that inventory. 1 Corinthians 10:23 says this, "For I have the right to do anything," you say, "but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do everything, but not everything is constructive." When you're getting to the 4th step, you know you've already turned your will over to the care of God. So now you're not operating on your will anymore, you're operating on God's will. And God's desire is for you to be transformed into his likeness, right? Into his likeness. Now, one of the most important things that you can do in your walk as you're seeking to grasp a hold of step 4, see in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33, it says, "Do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good morals." Who are you hanging around with? See, you cannot continue to go to the old playground, hang out with the old playmates, and do the old play things and expect to be transformed. By the time you reach that 4th step, hopefully you are like, I am not hanging out, you're not going to the bars, you're not cruising on the websites that you shouldn't be going to. All those things, you might think that you can do it, and yes, that's called free will, but it's not beneficial. You have to decide, are you ready to dive into step 4 and look at the good, the bad, and the ugly? Because you can't hold on to both. You cannot work an adequate, a successful step 4 if you're still dipping your toes in the websites you shouldn't be looking at. You can't work an adequate 4th step if you're still dipping your toes and drinking on the weekends and you're trying to hide it and you're trying to think that you have it under control. You can't dip your toes in the 4th step and think that you're going to be what is called 421 friendly and smoking that marijuana here and there just because it's legal. You can't be doing that. You're giving everything over to him, right? And even when you struggle with anxiety or depression, that is a response to what other things that are happening within you. You have to turn all that over to him because, step 1, when you're applying it to mental health, you're powerless over anxiety. It doesn't mean that you're defeated. It just means that you can't defeat it on your own. Saying you're powerless does not mean you're defeated. It just means you can't defeat it on your own. Admitting your own humanness is actually one of the most spiritual things you can do because it's the point in which you get to the end of yourself. I can't, he can, and now you're ready to step out. And he's saying he will strengthen you, he will help you, and he will uphold you through this. But you cannot hang out with and do the old things and work a successful 4th step. You're going to have to take a look at that. Right? Take a look at the decisions that you're making, who you're hanging around with, because I guarantee you, they'll pull you down. And anytime you approach a scenario or a relationship or a circumstance where you think that you're going to raise them up, it is 100 times easier for them to pull you down than it is for you to raise them up. And you will not have the strength within you to raise them up if you do not have the strength of God within you and you haven't worked that 4th step already. Let your life, the transformation of who you are, be the living example. Right? But then you get to the inventory of yourself. It's all about doing it yourself. So oftentimes, it's easier to look at the wrongs of everybody else. I mean, you have to admit, it is easier kind of like, when you start seeing the wrongs of other people, that leads then to gossip, that then leads into, I feel better when I see the weakness and the failures in you. Right? Is that what you say? Do you feel better when you see the weakness and the failures of others? It's not, maybe that's not what you wake up to do intentionally, but it is a natural tendency and pull for human behavior to do. In Matthew 7, verse 3, this is what Jesus says. "And why do you worry about the speck in your brother's eye when you actually have a log in your own?" Approaching the 4th step is recognizing that you got a log in your own eye. You don't need to worry about what the person in front of you, behind you, to the left or to the right of you. To not see they are on their own journey, their own path, working the 4th step with God in a very personal way that God has for them. So when you work the 4th step, it's going to be in a very personal way of what God has for you. You are to do your inventory, not anybody else's. And so again, how do you do that? Go back to Isaiah 41:10. Approach 4th step with Isaiah 41:10 in your mind. Do not fear. Psalm 139, "Search me, O God." When he searches you, he will reveal to you. When you ask him to search you, he will reveal to you. When you take a hold of Isaiah 41:10, and then you're approaching it, and he says, "Do not fear," now you're searching and you're fearless. Those two have to go together. It's not an either or. It's not like you don't get to choose. You're going to search and you're going to be fearless. They got to go together. So do not fear. Why? Because God is with you. Steps 1, 2, and 3 has already determined you've come to believe and you've made that decision. God is with you. And he says, don't be dismayed. That's the idea of don't be discouraged. So oftentimes we want things to happen overnight. A 4th step is not to be done overnight. A 4th step is done over time. Now, what that looks like, maybe it'll take you 2 weeks, maybe a week, maybe a month, but do not rush the 4th step. I guarantee you that by the time you're done with it, you'll eventually circle back around, and you'll be doing another 4th step. You'll do many 4th steps as you peel back the layer of the onion. The idea of this is your life is like an onion. And you pull back one layer only to find that there's another. And then you pull back that layer only to find out that there's another. And you keep pulling the layers only to find out that there is another. That is not a discouraging. What that is called is growth. That's called growth. As long as you live on this side of heaven, here on earth, you ought to be always in the perpetual cycle of growth. You do not get to absolute maturity, spiritual maturity, mental maturity, emotional maturity. You can always be better. Always something you can do. So the 4th step is a continuous thing, but you work it based on one area of your life, and then maybe you'll have to work it in another area of your life. But that's a blessing. It's not a curse, that's a blessing. He's saying, don't be dismayed, for I am your God. Well, how amazing, how incredible it is to have a God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, saying that he is going to be with you and you don't have to be afraid, and that he is going to help you. He is your God, and he's saying, I will strengthen you and I will help you, and that I will uphold you with my righteous hand. I'm going to strengthen you, I'm going to help you, and I'm going to give you victory. That's the most important thing about this 4th step, is that when you're doing it, he's going to strengthen you throughout the process, he's going to help you throughout the process, and he's going to give you victory through the process. But you have to approach it fearlessly and be willing to go to those places that you may not want to go. But the blessings that you'll find through it and because of it and out of it will be beyond what you could ever possibly imagine, but it is not without discomfort and pain. There might be some discomfort and pain. There might even be vulnerability happening. It is going to take you to a place that you maybe have never been willing to go before, never been able to go before. You didn't even have a thought in your mind that this is what you needed to do. But the 4th step is a crucial step. And it is what is going to then pave the way free, because our number one goal is that you may be able to be set free from whatever it is that you're encountering, whatever challenge, whatever struggle, maybe whatever sin, whatever's happened to you, whatever stronghold is happening within your life. Our desire is that those chains are broken and that you're set free and that you experience an amazing and incredible freedom in Christ. Christ is the center by which all things happen within inside of us, right? And so if you haven't accepted Christ in your life, I'd encourage you to do that. Accept Jesus Christ in your life to be the Lord and Savior of your life. See, because God the Father loves you that much that he sent his Son. And his Son is who then we, you and me, come to believe in, so that we have instant access to God the Father. God the Father, through his Son Jesus Christ, loves you beyond what you could ever possibly imagine, and he has nothing better to do than to keep his eyes focused upon you, gazed upon you, so that he can come up alongside you as he's living within you to help you work these steps so that you become a better version of yourself every single day, with him being reflected within you and you're reflecting his heart. But I hope you have an amazing day. I hope this week is an incredible week for you, and I look forward to seeing you next week. God bless. Have a great day.